All right, my secondary math 1 class, we are going to be continuing to talk about solving systems of equations. We're going to be primarily focusing on substitution today. Okay, so if we remember from our last few lessons, whenever you see the word systems, okay, it just means more than one. Okay, so we're talking about systems of equations, meaning more than one linear equation. Okay, so let's go ahead and review on 1 and 2 solving systems by graphing. Okay, so whenever we have two linear equations, remember all of these guys are written in slope-intercept form. Okay, so if we are going to graph our top line, okay, my pink line, we need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so remember in slope-intercept form, our slope is always right in front of our x. So we know that our slope for number 1, my first equation, is 1/3 or 1/3. Okay, we really like when they're written in fractions because that tells us our rise over run. Okay, then my y-intercept is the number with no variables attached. Okay, so it's just going to be that +3. Okay, and remember when we're graphing these, we always start with our y-intercept. Okay, that's our starting point. Okay, so if our starting point is our y-intercept, we're going to find +3 on our y-axis, and that's going to be right there. Okay, now I'm going to use my slope to count to my next point. So my slope is 1/3. So it's rise over run, so we need to rise 1 and run 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, remember a positive slope is always going up and to the right. Okay, so if we want to go backwards, we can. We can go down 1 and backwards 3, still creating that straight line. Okay, and there is our pink line. Beautiful. Okay, let's go ahead and graph our green line. So we need to identify again the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so for our green line, our slope is right in front of our x. In this case, it's going to be 2. Okay, or we can rewrite it as 2/1. Sorry, it's kind of bleeding into there. Okay, remember any whole number you can just put over 1 to make it a fraction. Okay, then we have our y-intercept, which is the number without any variables attached, just on the end. So we're going to have our y-intercept at -2. Okay, and remember our y-intercept is our starting point. Okay, so find -2 on your y-axis. That's going to be right there. Okay, now my slope is 2 or 2/1. So up 2, 1, 2, and over 1. Okay, we still haven't found where these two lines connect or intersect, so let's keep going. Up 2, over 1. Okay, maybe one more time. Up 2, and over 1. And there we go. Okay, so now the answer or the solution to a system of equations is always a coordinate point. Okay, it's always written as parentheses x, comma, y. Okay, so our x comes first, so find the x-axis where it lines up. Okay, it lines up with 3 on our x-axis and 4 on our y-axis. So we write this as 3, 4. And that is our answer. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's do the same thing for number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and graph my top one first. Okay, we need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, the slope is right in front of my x, so for number 2 it is 2. If we want to rewrite it as a fraction, we could write it as 2/1. Okay, and then my y-intercept is the number without the x, so that is going to be +3. Okay, remember we always start with our y-intercept, so find +3 on your y-axis, right there. And our slope is 2 or 2/1, so up 2/1. Okay, to give myself a few more points on my graph, I'm going to go backwards, so down 2, back 1, because it's still creating that straight line. down 2, back 1, down 2, back 1, down 2, back 1. Okay, this line goes on forever and ever and ever. We just ran out of room on our graph. Okay, so now let's go ahead and graph our green line. Okay, so we need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so my slope is right in front of my x, so this time it's -3 or -3 over 1. Okay, and then my y-intercept is the number without the x, so it's going to be -2. Okay, so we're going to find -2 on our y-axis and put our first point, because remember our y-intercept is our starting point. Okay, now we have to use our slope to count to our next point. So this time it's a negative slope. So we're going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Okay, so now you'll notice that the line is going down and to the right, but we still don't have where they intersect. So let's go backwards. Go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and back 1. Still creating that straight line. That line is going down and to the right because it's a negative slope. Okay. So we have this coordinate point where they intersect. So we need to write it as our answer. Remember, coordinate points are always written in parentheses, x comma y. So it lines up with -1 on our x-axis, -1, comma, and then +1 on our y-axis. -1, comma, 1. And there's our answer. Forgot to write this one over here. This one is 3, comma, 4. Cool. Okay, so that is solving systems of equations by graphing. You're actually putting them on a graph and finding that coordinate point where they intersect. Okay, so now we're talking about solving systems by substitution. Okay, but here's the thing. We're still trying to get this same answer. We're still trying to get parentheses x comma y. Okay, so we have to solve for both x and y on 3 through 6. Okay, but first, let's define substitution. What does it mean when we're saying we are substituting something? Okay, think of that as replacing. Okay, putting something in place for another thing. Had to get a drink. Okay, so we're substituting. So let's look at number 3. So we have y equals this, but then y also equals 0. Okay, well, answer me this. Is y the same thing as y? Does y equal y? Yes, those are the same things. So since y is the same thing as y, and they equal these guys, we can take this piece, 3x minus 6, and set it equal to that piece. Okay, now notice we're not dealing with any more y's. Okay, we just have an x in there, which means we can solve for x. Okay, so now I can go ahead and start solving for my x. Okay, so I need to get rid of, so we're looking on the same side of our equal sign. Okay, we want to get x by itself. So I need to get rid of what's farthest away, and that's going to be this minus 6. What's the opposite of minus 6? We're going to add 6. Okay, so 3x is left over here, equals 0 plus 6 is 6. Okay, one more step to get x by itself. This is saying 3 times x. So what is the opposite of times by 3? You're going to divide by 3. That gets rid of it. Do the same thing to both sides. So we have x is all by itself. What is 6 divided by 3? We get x equals 2. Okay, but this isn't our final answer. Remember, our answer is always written as x, comma, y. Okay, well, we found our x. We know what goes in the x spot. We found that 2 is our x. Okay, but we still don't know our y. Okay, so here's what we do. We're going to substitute this 2 for x. Okay, so first we substituted this piece for the y. Now we're going to substitute 2 for the x. Okay, so I'm going to choose this top one because the bottom one doesn't have an x. So we're going to choose that top equation there, and we're going to substitute it in. Or in other words, we're going to take that 2 and we're going to put it right there where that x is. So now I have y is equal to 3 times 2 minus 6. Okay, so now we can just solve. Y equals, what is 3 times 2? That's 6 minus 6. What is 6 minus 6? This is going to give us our y. 0. Okay, so we know that our full answer is 2, 0. We found our x, and then we used it, plugged it in to find our y. Notice x equals and y equals. So final answer, 2, 0. Remember, x is always listed first. Okay, beautiful. Let's do that again for number 4. So notice that y is equal to this piece, but y is also equal to that piece. Well, since y equals y, these guys are the same things, we can take this piece, 2x minus 1, and set it equal to that piece, 3. Okay, and now we can start solving for x. Okay, so I need to get rid of the things that are on the same side as my x. Okay, and first I need to get rid of what's farthest away. Since this 2 is attached, we got to get rid of this -1. Well, what is the opposite of -1 or -1? Going to add 1. Got to do the same thing over here. So we get 2x is equal to 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, last step. We have a times by 2, so how do I get rid of, or what is the opposite of times by 2? Divide by 2. Same thing over here. So we get x is equal to, what is 4 divided by 2? 2. Okay, so we know that in our answer up here, it's always written as x, comma, y. Well, we found our x spot. We found that x is 2. Okay, so now we're going to substitute 2 where we see an x. Okay, so I'm going to take this 2 and I'm going to plug it in right where I see that x. Okay, so now I have y equals 2, that was already there, times 2, right? We substituted that 2 in for the x, minus 1. Okay, so now we can go ahead and just solve it. So y equals on this side, what's 2 times 2? 4. And what's 4 minus 1? We get 3. Okay, so we found our y. Our y was 3. So our final answer is 2, 3 in parentheses. Okay, notice that these answers look the exact same as these answers, right? Parentheses, something, comma, something. That's always what our answers are going to be when solving systems of equations. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve number 5. Okay, so I see that y is equal to this piece, and y is also equal to that piece. Okay, well, since y is the same thing as y, we can set the first piece, 3x minus 2, equal to the second piece, x minus 2. Okay. Well, in order to solve for x, we need all of our x's to be on one side of our equal sign. And notice I have one x over here, and I have 3 x's over here. We need them all to be on one side. So we need to move either the 3x or the 1x. And I like moving the smaller one. So I know that 1 is smaller than 3. So I'm going to move this x over here. Okay, we have to do the opposite of positive 1x. What's the opposite of positive 1x? Negative 1x. Okay, so that moves him over here. Okay, remember we can only combine x's with x's. So 3x minus 1x becomes 2x minus 2 that was already over there equals negative 2 that was left on that side. Okay, so we see all of our x's are on one side now. So now we can go ahead and solve. Okay, so I need to get rid of what's farthest away from my x, which is this negative 2. So what is the opposite of negative 2? Going to add 2 to both sides. So I get 2x left over here equals, what is negative 2 plus 2? It's going to give me 0. Okay, and one last step. 2 times something equals 0. Well, what's the opposite of times by 2? Divide by 2. And what is 0 divided by 2? 0. Okay, so we found our x. We found the x part of our answer. Remember, it's always listed as x comma y. And we found that our x is 0. Okay, so remember now we're going to substitute our x wherever we see an x. Okay, but here's the thing, we only have to choose one of them. So you get to choose top or bottom. Guess what? It doesn't matter. I'm personally going to choose the bottom. Okay, that one right there. So I'm going to do y equals, okay, it used to be an x. Now I'm going to plug in that 0 because x minus 2, now it's 0 minus 2. Well, what is 0 minus 2? What do we get? We get negative 2. So our final answer is 0, comma, negative 2. Beautiful. One more example. Okay, I see that y is equal to this piece, and y is also equal to that piece. And since y and y are the same things, we can take the first piece, negative 3x plus 2, and set it equal to the second piece, negative 2x. Okay, so look at my x's. I have negative 3 on this side, negative 2 on that side. Which is smaller? Because we need to move them all to one side. Which is smaller, negative 3 or negative 2? Okay, remember negative 3 is actually the smaller one. So what's the opposite of negative 3x? We have positive 3x. That's going to move him over here. So I get 2 is left on this side. And what is negative 2 plus 3? Negative 2 plus 3, that's just going to give me 1. But wait, see how x is already by itself? It's just 1? Well, there we go. That was our answer to our x. So we already found the x part of our answer. Okay, so the x part comes first, and we found that 2 is x. Okay, so now we can use this to substitute it wherever we see an x. You can choose top or bottom. I'm personally going to choose the bottom. Okay, so right there, I'm going to plug in 2. So y equals negative 2 that was already there, multiplied by positive 2. Okay, and what is negative 2 times 2? We get negative 4. So our final answer, 2 we found for x, and negative 4 we found for y. So final answer, 2, comma, negative 4.